Welcome, traveler. Settle into whatever place feels most comfortable and let the sound of this journey carry you gently into another time. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through human and time, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel. And now, without any hurry, we will step toward the stone walls of 15th century London. The year is around 1450. London is not yet the vast, unbroken city we know today, but it is already a living place of people, animals, wheels, bells, markets, smoke, and narrow streets. Near one of the city's gates stands Newgate. To someone passing outside, the structure may seem only another part of the city's crowded fabric. To someone taken inside, however, the world suddenly becomes smaller. A few moments ago there were streets to walk, corners to turn, and places one might choose to go. Now there is stone, timber, and a locked door. The city has not disappeared. It has simply become unreachable. Today we are not following a king, a knight, or a famous criminal. We will stay beside an ordinary man whose name has not survived into history. He is poor, he has been accused of theft, and he has been brought to Newgate to wait for the legal process that will decide what happens next. We do not know whether he is guilty. We do not need to know. We are not here to solve his case, discover his sentence, or force his life toward a dramatic ending. We are here only for one ordinary day. We will watch what happens to time when freedom is removed, and what it means to wait while the city beyond the walls continues to move. Dawn has not yet fully entered the darkness inside the building. The stone has held the coolness of the night, and the air in the room still feels heavy from many hours of enclosure. This is not a modern prison cell, regular and private, designed for one person. Newgate contains rooms, wards, and different levels of accommodation. Money matters. Those who can pay may have access to better rooms, more light, a bed, or a more comfortable place to stay. Those with little money have fewer choices. Our prisoner wakes in a modest, dim space shared with other men. We should not imagine that every poor prisoner lies in exactly the same arrangement of straw and bare stone, because the records do not allow us to say that. Prisoners could bring bedding, and beds or blankets might be rented. Poverty, here, is not merely the absence of coins. It reaches all the way down to the quality of sleep. For a while, no one seems to know the hour in the way we would expect today. There is no reason to imagine a modern timetable fixed to the wall, with a precise hour for waking, eating, working, and sleeping. The day reveals itself differently. Light changes. Doors begin to open more often. Footsteps gather in the passage. Voices become less sleepy. Outside, London is moving toward morning. Inside, minutes can resemble one another so closely that time seems to widen. Someone shifts in his sleep. Rough cloth brushes against timber or stone. Another man clears his throat. Then, somewhere beyond the room, metal touches metal with a brief, hard sound. It may be a key, a lock, or the ring of an iron restraint. Shackles and manacles existed here, and they were used, but it would be wrong to imagine every prisoner permanently chained. Newgate did not depend upon keeping every person in irons at all times. Restraints could be used according to circumstance and risk, and complaints survive about their abuse. Yet the ordinary sound of prison life was not an endless clatter of chains. More often it was the smaller noise made by people who had nowhere else to go. If a little daylight reaches the room, it does so weakly at first. Some parts of Newgate could be very dark, while other rooms were better lit and had windows. The wealthy might pay for more comfortable accommodation. The poor could be left in less favorable spaces. As the eyes adjust, the room slowly becomes visible. A wall changes from one shade of gray to another. The frayed edge of a man's clothing appears. A leather shoe rests near a foot. A simple vessel catches a trace of light. The thickness of the door becomes easier to see. There is no prison uniform. The men wear the clothing of their ordinary lives. A man brought in yesterday does not become visually transformed into a new kind of person. His clothes still belong to the world outside. Our prisoner straightens a plain, worn garment and feels the coolness of the room against his hands. There is no silk, no bright decoration, nothing that would mark him as wealthy. His leather shoes are simple, the kind of practical footwear common among Londoners. The prison changes where his body may go, but it does not erase who he was before the door closed. Several smells have gathered in the enclosed air. There is the warmth of human bodies, the dampness held by stone, a faint trace of smoke or fuel, and the less pleasant odors that come with sanitation and a crowded city. Newgate did have privies. Records mention their repair, the replacement of wooden seats, and work connected with carrying waste away. That does not mean the prison was clean by modern standards, nor that its air was pleasant. It means only that we should not imagine an entirely uncontrolled pit of filth in every corner. Medieval life was often more practical, uneven, and complicated than the simplest images of a dungeon suggest. After some time, movement increases. A heavy door opens, and the change in the room is immediate. More light enters from the passage. A shadow crosses the threshold. Several men sit up or rise. There is no need for a shouted command to make the morning feel real. Sometimes the opening of a door is enough. Water is one of the most basic needs inside the prison. In the 1430s, records show that water was brought by lead pipe from the area of St. Bartholomew's for the benefit of poor prisoners at Newgate. We cannot assume that this meant every prisoner enjoyed unlimited free water at every moment. Still, the detail matters. It reminds us that the prison was not simply an isolated stone box. It was connected to the city by infrastructure, charity, administration, trade, and human need. Our prisoner takes water when it becomes available. We do not need to invent the exact vessel in his hands. What matters is the coolness of the drink and the brief relief as it passes passes down his throat. When a person possesses very little, small comforts become easier to notice. Water, a little light, a warmer place, a blanket, something to eat, outside. Such things can disappear into habit. Inside, each one has weight. Many of those comforts have a price. Newgate is not only a place that restricts movement, it contains its own small economy. A better room, a bed, light, fuel, food, drink, each may depend upon money, social position, or help from people beyond the walls. Imprisonment does not erase the differences that existed in London society. In some ways, it makes them more visible. Two men behind the same outer gate may live very different days. Somewhere else in the prison, a prisoner with money may have more light. He may have brought his own bedding. A relative may have sent food. Our man cannot rely on such comforts. Poverty becomes another wall, one that stands inside the physical walls of the prison. Beyond the stone is the city. Beyond money are the smaller comforts that make confinement easier. Yet we should not turn this place into an uninterrupted display of misery. People continue to behave like people, even in uncomfortable places. One man rubs his face. Another sits quietly. A few words pass between two prisoners and then fade. We do not need to invent a dramatic conversation. The simple presence of voices is enough. A handful of ordinary words can soften the loneliness of a stone room. Outside, London is becoming clearer through sound. Newgate does not stand in an empty landscape far from human life. It belongs to the city. Nearby, Smithfield has long been associated with the trade in animals. Animals could be driven through the area toward the butchers around Newgate Shambles. Elsewhere, the Fleet waterway had become heavily polluted over the centuries by the waste of people, animals, and urban work. The air beyond the prison, then, is not necessarily clean or romantic. Freedom does not smell like open meadow and flowers. The outside world is crowded, working, noisy, and dirty. Still, every sound from beyond the walls means something different to someone who cannot follow it. The roll of a wheel across stone, the distant movement of animals, voices passing along the street, a door closing somewhere beyond the prison, perhaps the vibration of a church bell carrying across the city. Each sound belongs to someone who is going somewhere. A merchant turns into another street. A laborer carries a load. A household begins its work. Someone walks toward a market. Someone returns from an errand. The prisoner can hear movement without joining it. His own geography has become a room, a corridor, perhaps a few permitted steps. This may be one of the strangest things about confinement, the ordinary freedom of other people. Most people outside do not need to think about being free. They do not ask permission before turning a corner. They do not touch a wall and think of it as the edge of their world. Freedom, while it is present, is often almost invisible. A prison does not need to explain this idea. Stone does not lecture. A locked door does not teach philosophy. Yet if a person sits beside the same wall long enough, the mind begins to notice what movement once meant. The morning advances. The daylight may grow stronger, but the room remains dim. Records refer to money connected with prison lamps, which were likely associated with common areas and passages, rather than guaranteeing that every prisoner's room was continuously lit. Some spaces could remain dark for long periods. Light, therefore, is more than atmosphere. It is a resource. So is heat. So is food. So is a place to sleep. A few coins can change the texture of a day. A prisoner with money might buy all. He might obtain better food, pay for bedding, buy fuel, or secure more comfortable accommodation. A poor man depends more heavily upon family, friends, charitable giving, and the uncertain generosity of others. We should not imagine a modern institution routinely providing every prisoner with a complete standard package of meals, bedding, and personal necessities. Much of daily survival is tied to the world outside. That outside world does sometimes reach in. Poor prisoners at Newgate received food, drink, money, and charitable support. People left gifts to prisoners in their wills. Visiting the imprisoned and feeding those in need belonged to recognized Christian ideas of mercy. This does not make Newgate gentle. It does, however, remind us that the prison wall was not an absolute boundary between the condemned and everyone else. Compassion could cross it. At some point, food may arrive or be distributed. We cannot honestly give our prisoner a fixed institutional menu and say that every morning began with one exact meal and every midday with another. The evidence does not support such certainty. Bread and other simple foods could reach poor prisoners through charity and support. It is reasonable that our man receives something modest to eat. He holds it without ceremony. There is no banquet, only the small rhythm of eating in a place where very little changes. A hand rises. A bite is taken. The sound of chewing briefly joins the low voices. Then the food is gone. Elsewhere, a prisoner with more money might have something better. Another might buy all. Again, the invisible line of wealth appears. The prison is shared, but the experience of imprisonment is not equal. After eating, there may be nothing immediate to do. This is important. The medieval prison day should not be imagined as a continuous sequence of spectacular punishments, forced labor, shouted orders, and violent events. Records do preserve examples of mistreatment and restraints, but it would be false to turn those examples into the ordinary rhythm of every hour. For many prisoners, one of the defining experiences was more quiet than that. Waiting can look like nothing from the outside. From within, it can fill an entire day. Our man does not know exactly how long he will remain here. He does not know when his case will move. He does not know whether a legal hearing will change everything or simply lead to more waiting. Prisoners might be released relatively quickly through bail, surety, fines, settlement, or other legal mechanisms. Others could remain longer. Gall delivery sessions took place periodically, and their frequency could vary. There is no need to tell this man that he will be here for months. Because we do not know that, the uncertainty itself is enough. He looks toward the door. Perhaps his name will be called today. Perhaps not. We will not decide for him. A man nearby lies back down. Another leans against the wall. Someone speaks quietly for a while. There is no evidence for a rigid daily program of compulsory activity that fills every hour. Comparative research on medieval imprisonment shows that boredom and empty time could be important parts of the prison experience. Prisoners in medieval settings might write, play games, make small objects, or find other ways to occupy themselves. But we should not assign a specific pastime to every prisoner at Newgate unless the evidence supports it. For now, the safest truth is the emptiness itself. And emptiness, when we listen closely, is full of detail. A shoe shifts against stone. Leather creaks. Someone breathes deeply. Water moves inside a vessel. Footsteps travel along the passage and disappear. A bell sounds far away and then is gone. A prisoner murmurs a prayer. Newgate included a chapel. But we do not need to invent a strict daily schedule in which every poor prisoner is marched there at a fixed hour. Religion enters this world more naturally than that. It comes through habits, whispered prayers, bells across the city, and the understanding of charity that allows food and money to reach those inside. In 15th century London, belief is part of the ordinary texture of life. A prisoner may pray from hope, from fear, from habit, or simply because silence leaves room for familiar words. The light continues to change. Faces become clearer. The room is still not bright, but the morning has taken shape. Outside, work has fully begun. Inside, the day has begun without truly going anywhere. Near the door, there is movement. Someone has come from outside. Visitors and relatives could matter deeply to the lives of prisoners because they might bring food, money, bedding, news, or other forms of support. The prisoner's survival was not entirely organized by the institution itself. The people beyond the walls remained important. We will not invent a wife, a brother, or a friend for our man simply to make the scene more emotional. Perhaps no one has come for him. Perhaps the name called belongs to someone else. That possibility may be more revealing. One of the other prisoners lifts his head sharply. A familiar voice can be heard beyond the room. For a brief moment, the stone walls feel thinner. Someone outside remembers that this man exists. A little food may pass inward. A few words may be exchanged. Then the voice recedes. The prisoner who was visited remains where he is. The visitor walks away. The difference between them is only a door, and yet it is an entire world. Our man listens until the sound disappears. There are no screams, no sudden punishment, no dramatic revelation, only the quiet knowledge that someone else has been reached from outside, while he continues to wait. By now the air has lost some of the coolness of dawn. The stone remains cold to the touch. but the presence of several bodies, the enclosed room, and the rising day have changed the temperature. Heat, like light, is tied to resources. Charcoal and other fuel could be sold, and reforms in the early 15th century attempted to restrict prison officers from exploiting monopolies over items such as food, candles, and charcoal. Even warmth belongs to the economy of imprisonment. Our prisoner rubs his hands together. It is a small, ordinary movement. Nothing dramatic is required. The body simply looks for comfort where it can. Footsteps return to the passage. This time they come closer. Several prisoners look up. The sound slows near the door. For a moment, the room becomes very still. Perhaps a name will be called. But no name comes. The footsteps continue. The silence that follows is not peaceful, exactly, but neither is it a moment of high drama. It is the dense quiet of uncertainty, and we will not hurry through it, because one of the most important truths of this ordinary prison day is that nothing extraordinary needs to happen for confinement to feel heavy. The day itself is the event. The waiting is the event. The narrowing of the world is the event. Morning moves slowly across the stone. Light settles differently on the wall. Another door opens somewhere. Another closes. Water changes hands. A few words are spoken. Someone rests his head back against the wall. Someone else listens to the city. The passage grows quieter again. A man leans against stone and closes his eyes. Not necessarily to sleep, but because there is little else that demands them. Another stares toward the light. The room has no need to entertain anyone. Time is allowed to remain empty. Outside, the city is nearing the middle of its day. Inside, reaching midday does not mean a task is half finished. There may be no task, no field to cross, no object to complete, no journey to measure. The first half of the day simply passes, and perhaps that is one of the quietest truths of imprisonment. Outside, time carries people from one activity to another. A shop opens. A cart is unloaded. An animal is led through the streets. A bell marks a change in the day. Inside Newgate, time may do nothing more than move a patch of light across a wall. Our prisoner lifts his eyes toward whatever opening admits the daylight. If a piece of sky can be seen, it may be narrow. Perhaps no sky is visible at all, only brightness entering from somewhere beyond the stone. We will not invent a view that the evidence does not give us. The changing light is enough, because the day is moving. The people outside are moving with it. The prisoners are part of the same day, but not the same rhythm. Some of the men around him may have arrived only recently. Others may have waited longer. Their legal situations need not be identical. One may expect release sooner. Another may have no idea when anything will change. Their futures can be different even while they occupy the same room. This makes prison time strangely personal. The same bell can sound for everyone in London. For one prisoner it may mean that the day is advancing toward some hoped for hearing. For another it may bring thoughts of family. For another it may mean nothing more than another portion of the day has gone. Stone receives the same sound. Each person gives it a different meaning. Our man lowers his eyes again. The room is a little warmer now. The city is louder beyond the walls. Somewhere in the passage, a door opens and closes. Someone speaks too softly for the words to be understood. Midday is drawing nearer, and without announcement, without spectacle, without any change in the prisoner's fate, the long ordinary day continues. As the light strengthens, the sounds from beyond the walls seem to gather with it. London has moved fully into the working hours of the day, and although very little changes inside the room, the city announces its movement in fragments. A cart passes somewhere beyond Newgate. Voices rise and dissolve. Animals can be heard in the distance. From farther away comes another bell, its sound softened by streets, roofs, walls, and the dense fabric of the city before reaching the prisoners. The men do not need to see the sun to understand that morning is giving way to midday. Our prisoner shifts his weight against the wall. The stone no longer carries quite the same chill it held near dawn, though it remains cool beneath his hand. Around him, the air has grown warmer and heavier. Several men have occupied the same enclosed space for hours now. Clothing, breath, damp stone, smoke, and the less pleasant traces of human habitation have settled together into an atmosphere that cannot escape quickly. Yet the prison itself is not motionless. Beyond the room are passages, doors, officials, visitors, prisoners, supplies, and all the small exchanges required to keep such a place functioning. Somewhere water must continue to move. Somewhere food changes hands. Somewhere a prisoner with money negotiates for something more comfortable. Somewhere another waits for charity. The differences between those men are visible in things so ordinary that they might be overlooked. A blanket, a candle, a little fuel, a better meal, a place near a window, the ability to buy all. Outside Newgate, wealth determines where a person lives, what cloth he wears, what food appears on his table, and how much comfort he can purchase against the cold. The gate does not erase those distinctions. It carries them inward. For our prisoner, the day remains simple. He has little money. Whatever food he has received is modest. The water available to him is more important than it might once have seemed. There is no private chamber waiting somewhere nearby, no comfortable bed to which he can retreat, no servant arriving with a meal. He belongs to the poor world of Newgate, where survival depends more heavily upon what can be afforded, what can be sent from outside, and what charity provides. He watches another man turn something small between his fingers. We need not decide what the object is. It may be nothing more than a personal possession, something carried into the prison from ordinary life. Prisoners could retain belongings, and that fact alone changes the atmosphere of the room. This is not a place in which every trace of the outside world has been removed. Clothing comes in. Bedding can come in. Food and money can arrive through visitors. Personal things may remain close to their owners. The objects carry memories without needing to speak. A worn piece of cloth has been somewhere else. A shoe has walked other streets. A blanket may once have rested in a room where the door was not locked from the outside. Even the most ordinary possession can become a small piece of another place. The prisoner's own clothing still bears the shape of the life he had before Newgate. Perhaps dust from London once settled into its seams. Perhaps rain once darkened the fabric as he walked through the city. Those exact moments are unknowable, and so we leave them unwritten. But the garment itself belongs to the world beyond the walls, and now it has been carried into confinement with him. Nearby, another prisoner speaks. The words are low, perhaps directed towards someone sitting beside him. There is no need for the conversation to contain anything important. In a place where hours stretch, ordinary speech has value precisely because it is ordinary. People may talk simply because another human voice interrupts the sameness of stone. Our man listens for a while. Then his attention drifts again toward the passage. Waiting changes the way a person listens. A footstep is no longer merely a footstep. It may belong to an officer, a visitor, someone carrying food, someone opening another room, someone bringing news. The sound approaches, and for a few moments possibility approaches with it. Then it passes, and possibility passes too. The prisoner does not know when his own legal situation will change. This uncertainty belongs to the structure of imprisonment itself. Medieval English prisons could hold people awaiting legal proceedings, and confinement could also serve punitive purposes. Release might come through several routes. Some prisoners could leave quickly. Others waited much longer. The old image of every medieval prisoner being placed in a dungeon to serve a fixed sentence misunderstands a much more varied reality. Our man may not possess a neat date on which his confinement will end. He has today, and for now, today is enough to fill his attention. The light entering the prison has reached something close to its daytime strength. It catches the uneven surfaces of the interior differently now. Stone that seemed almost black before dawn has become gray. Timber reveals scratches and wear. Iron fittings on the door hold small points of brightness. The prison has been used by many hands before his. Doors have been opened and closed. Locks have turned. Feet have crossed the same floors. People have waited in these spaces, each carrying a private fear, a private hope, a private explanation of how he came to be here. The building remembers none of their stories in the way a person might. Stone simply remains. Perhaps this is why old buildings can feel so patient. Human lives move through them quickly. A man may believe the day before him is impossibly long, while the wall beside him has already endured years of such days. A sound from outside briefly becomes louder. Animals. Smithfield is not far away. And the trade in livestock belongs to this part of London's life. We should not imagine that our prisoner can identify every movement beyond the wall, but the surrounding city contains cattle, horses, carts, merchants, laborers, butchers, buyers, sellers, and pedestrians moving through narrow spaces. The medieval city is not quiet, nor is it clean in the way a modern listener might expect. The nearby Fleet has long received the waste of urban life. Streets carry the traces of animals and work. Smoke rises from fires. Food is prepared. Trades produce their own smells. The butchering of animals around Newgate shambles contributes another strong presence to the neighborhood. The air that reaches the prison is therefore layered. Damp stone within, human bodies, smoke, waste, animals beyond, the working city. The prisoner may long for the street, but not because the street is gentle. It is simply somewhere he could once move. A little later, there is activity connected with food again. We cannot give every prisoner the same meal, because there is no reliable daily Newgate menu waiting for us in the records. The poor depended heavily upon assistance. Those with money could obtain more. Archaeological evidence from other medieval prison contexts reminds us that prison diets could be more varied than the familiar image of bread and water. But it would be equally misleading to transfer every such finding directly into this room. So we remain with what the evidence allows. Something simple is available. Perhaps bread reaches the poor prisoners through charity. Perhaps another man has received food from outside. Someone with money may possess more than someone without it. What matters is not the exact arrangement on a plate, but the inequality made visible through food. One man eats, another watches, a third waits. Hunger has a way of sharpening smell. Even a modest piece of food becomes noticeable in an enclosed room. The faint scent of bread, if bread has arrived, does not need to be rich or fresh to draw attention. The mouth anticipates before the hand receives anything. The stomach responds before thought has finished. Our prisoner eats what is available to him slowly. There is no reason to rush. Rushing would only make the food disappear sooner. He chews, swallows, and takes a little water. For a few minutes, the day has structure. Then the meal is finished. The empty time returns. Outside, people may be pausing from work, eating, trading, carrying goods, or moving between tasks. Inside, the end of food does not lead naturally to another occupation. A man may rest. Another may talk. Someone may pray. Someone may simply stare. Boredom sounds trivial when described from a distance. Yet boredom in confinement is different from the boredom of an idle afternoon chosen freely. A free person can stand, open a door, walk outside, find another room, seek another face, change the view. Here, the repetition cannot be escaped so easily. The same wall remains. The same voices return. The same door continues to decide where the world ends. Our prisoner stands for a while. His legs have been still too long. There may be only limited room to move, but a few steps are still movement. He crosses what space is available to him, then turns. His leather shoes meet the floor with a dull sound. Another man shifts to give him room. A few steps, turn, a few steps back. It is hardly a journey, yet the body remembers walking. Outside, a person can walk until the shape of the city changes around him. Here, movement folds back upon itself. Every direction eventually returns him to the same place. He stops. His hand rests briefly against stone. Cool, rough, unyielding. The sensation is simple enough to require no interpretation. But in a place defined by boundaries, touch becomes another way of understanding space. The eyes see the wall. The hand confirms it. A little farther away, a door opens. This time the sound is followed by voices. The prisoners listen without appearing to listen. Someone may be entering or leaving another part of the building. A visitor may have arrived. An official may be speaking. A prisoner may be moved. We cannot know which event belongs to this particular moment, and there is no reason to force certainty upon it. The voices fade. Again, nothing changes for our man. This repeated nearness of events without participation becomes part of the day. Things happen just beyond his reach. Doors open for other people. Names belong to other people. Visitors come for other people. The prison is full of movement, but much of that movement belongs to someone else. The hours do not need violence to feel heavy. In fact, the absence of spectacle brings us closer to the ordinary reality we are trying to inhabit. Popular imagination often fills medieval imprisonment with torture chambers, instruments of pain, screaming prisoners, and constant brutality. There were restraints. There were abuses. There were harsh punishments in medieval society. But to place all of them into every hour of this man's day would distort the world rather than reveal it. Newgate can be uncomfortable without becoming a theater of suffering. Cold can be enough. Hunger can be enough. Uncertainty can be enough. A locked door can be enough. And sometimes the hardest thing to endure is simply another hour that resembles the one before it. The prisoner's attention returns to the other men. They are not merely scenery around him. Each is another life interrupted. Some may have people outside who remember them. Others may depend more completely upon charity. Some may possess money. Others almost none. One may have bedding. Another may have little comfort when darkness comes. Their legal circumstances may differ as much as their material circumstances. Yet for a few hours they share the same air. The smell of the room has changed as the day has warmed. The dampness of stone is still present, but human warmth is stronger now. If fuel is being used elsewhere, smoke may find its way through the building. Sanitation leaves its own trace. From outside come occasional odors of the city. A modern person might find the combination overwhelming. For someone born into 15th century London, the contrast between prison and street would be different. The city outside already contains smoke, animals, waste, crowded dwellings, workshops, food. Dampness, and open urban smells. The prison concentrates some discomforts, but it does not introduce every unpleasant scent for the first time. The prisoner knows the smell of his city. Perhaps that makes the air from outside even more recognizable. A familiar unpleasantness can still feel like home when it arrives from somewhere you cannot reach. Another bell travels through the distance. This one seems to linger. Sound moves where bodies cannot. It passes over walls, through openings along streets, and into enclosed spaces. No guard needs to permit it. No fee is required. A poor prisoner and a wealthy prisoner can hear the same bell. For a few moments, sound creates a strange equality. Then the bell fades, and the material differences return. Somewhere in Newgate, someone can afford better accommodation. Perhaps a prisoner in a more favorable room has a window that admits more daylight. Perhaps bedding separates him from the harder surfaces around him. Perhaps fuel makes his space warmer when cold returns. The surviving regulations and records make clear that such distinctions mattered. Money does not unlock the main gate, but it can soften many things before that gate opens. For the poor, imprisonment therefore has layers. There is confinement itself. Then, there is the inability to purchase relief from confinement. Our man has already learned the difference between needing something and being able to obtain it. Water may come through provisions intended for the poor. Food may depend upon charity. A candle later in the day may be beyond his means. Warmth may belong more readily to someone with fuel. Even darkness can be unequal. The thought need not be spoken. It is visible in the building. As the day reaches its middle, a little movement begins again. Perhaps people are using the privy, fetching water where permitted, speaking with officials, receiving supplies, or simply changing position after sitting too long. Newgate must function as a physical place. Bodies require water, food, sanitation, and some degree of movement regardless of the legal questions surrounding them. The privies are an important reminder of how easily later imagination simplifies medieval life. Newgate had sanitation arrangements that required maintenance and repair. Wooden seats could be replaced. Waste outlets could be worked upon. The existence of such infrastructure does not make the prison pleasant. It simply makes it real. Real places are rarely as simple as legends. They contain repairs, payments, pipes, timber, food, rules, complaints, people trying to make systems work, and sometimes trying to profit from them. The reforms associated with Newgate in the early 15th century reveal some of these tensions. Officials could not simply be allowed to control every necessity without restriction. Attempts were made to prevent monopolistic exploitation involving things prisoners needed, including food, candles, and charcoal. Behind those administrative details is an ordinary human experience. Imagine needing warmth and discovering that warmth has a price. Imagine wanting a candle and knowing that darkness costs less. Imagine being hungry while food exists only a few steps away but belongs to someone else. The records speak in payments and regulations. The body experiences them as cold, darkness, and appetite. Our prisoner returns to his place near the wall. The strongest daylight of the day now enters whatever openings the architecture allows. He can see more clearly than before. The room is not transformed by the light. It merely reveals itself. The surface of timber, the dull iron of fittings, clothing in muted tones, faces marked more by tiredness and waiting than by anything dramatic. A vessel, a shoe, hands resting on knees. Nothing in the room needs to be extraordinary. That may be why it feels so human. A prisoner's life is not made entirely from the moments that later chroniclers choose to record. Most of it is made from gestures too small for history: scratching an itch, adjusting clothing, taking water, stretching a leg, listening, remembering, waiting. History preserves regulations about beds and lamps because someone paid for them, argued about them, or ordered them. It preserves complaints because someone petitioned. It preserves legal proceedings because institutions needed records. It rarely preserves the exact moment when a nameless man leaned his head against a wall and closed his eyes for a minute. Yet such moments must have filled most of his day. The old traveler can only stand quietly beside those spaces in the record. Where knowledge ends, we do not invent another event. We listen instead. The building creaks, footsteps pass, someone coughs. A voice rises, then becomes low again. Beyond the walls, London continues. The afternoon has not yet fully arrived, but the brightness has stopped increasing. The day seems suspended at its highest point. Our prisoner opens his eyes. Across the room, another man is looking toward the door. There is something universal in that direction of attention. No matter how many walls surround a person, the door remains different from the wall. A wall promises nothing. A door, by its nature, can open. Most of the time, it does not open for him. But the possibility remains visible. Perhaps this is why footsteps matter so much. Again they come. Slowly this time. Metal touches metal. The door opens. Light from the passage widens across the floor. A figure stands beyond it. There is no violence in the moment, no sudden struggle, no reason for alarm. Some ordinary movement of the prison is taking place. A few words are exchanged. One of the men nearer the entrance shifts forward. Perhaps he is required elsewhere. Perhaps someone has come for him. The exact purpose remains beyond what we can safely know. Our prisoner watches. The opening gives him a slightly different view of the passage for only a short while. Timber, stone, movement, a little more light. Then the man at the threshold moves away. The door closes. The room becomes dimmer again. For someone outside, a door closing is among the smallest sounds in a day. Here, it changes the entire room. The prisoners settle back into their positions. The moment passes. A little later, water is available again. Our man drinks. The temperature of it is pleasant against the warmth. that has accumulated indoors. He lets the last swallow linger before lowering the vessel. There is no need to speak. His body has simple needs, and for a moment one of them has been met. This is another quiet feature of confinement. The world can become very small without becoming empty. Water matters, light matters, a voice matters, a few steps matter. The difference between cold and warmth matters. The sound of someone arriving from outside matters. Things that once disappeared into the background move slowly toward the center of attention. Perhaps that is why a day like this can feel longer than a day filled with travel. On a road, the landscape changes. In a workshop, material changes beneath the hands. In a field, the sun moves while labor leaves visible traces behind. Here, the prisoner may look at the wall after several hours and find it unchanged. Only he has changed slightly, a little more tired, a little hungrier, a little more accustomed to the sounds. The city outside has already lived through half a day without him. Somewhere, animals have been bought and sold. Goods have moved. Meals have been prepared. Water has flowed through streets and channels. Fires have burned. People have argued, laughed, worked, prayed, and walked through gates without thinking about the simple act of passing through them. Newgate has participated in that same day differently. Its doors have opened. Supplies have entered. Officials have moved. Visitors may have come. Prisoners have waited. The building is part of London. Yet its rhythm is slower than the streets around it. The prisoner hears another murmur from the passage. This time he does not immediately lift his head. Perhaps he is beginning to learn which sounds deserve attention. Not every footstep brings news. Not every key belongs to his door. Not every visitor has come for him. The mind adapts even to uncertainty. For a while, he simply listens without expectation. That may be a small kind of rest. His shoulders loosen slightly. His hands lie still. The room around him becomes less a collection of threats and more what it has been for hours. A place occupied by other tired people. One man murmurs something. Another answers. Their voices remain low. There is no need to hear the words. Outside, another cart passes. Its wheels make a rough rhythm against the street, growing louder, then softer, until the sound disappears into London. The prisoner follows it with his ears as long as he can. For a few seconds, the cart gives direction to the unseen city. It comes from somewhere. It passes Newgate. It goes somewhere else. The man does none of those things. Still, the sound has carried a tiny journey through the room. He looks again toward the patch of daylight. Its position has begun to shift. Midday is passing. The strongest light will not remain where it is. Slowly, almost too slowly to notice, the brightness will begin its movement toward afternoon. No one inside needs to announce this. Stone receives the changing light. The prisoners receive the changing temperature. The city changes its sounds. Time leaves small traces wherever it can, and while the day begins its quiet descent away from noon, Our prisoner remains beside the wall, listening as London continues to move just beyond him. The changing light is subtle at first. Nothing announces the arrival of afternoon. There is only a gradual difference in the angle of brightness, a slight retreat from one part of the stone, and a quiet appearance upon another. For the men inside Newgate, this is enough. The building has its own way of keeping time, written not in numbers but in light, temperature, hunger, footsteps, and the changing sounds of the city. Our prisoner remains where he has been sitting, though he shifts his position from time to time. The human body resists stillness even when the world around it demands patience. A shoulder grows uncomfortable. A leg stiffens. The back searches for a different place against the stone. Then, after a while, the new position becomes uncomfortable too. There is no urgency in these movements. The afternoon has nowhere it needs to go. Outside, London does. The streets continue to carry people between markets, homes, workshops, churches, gates, and river landings. Somewhere nearby, animals are still being moved through the city. Somewhere a merchant counts what has been sold. Somewhere a craftsman continues a task begun hours earlier. Fires are tended. Food is prepared. Goods change hands. Water is carried. Doors stand open to customers and close again behind them. Inside Newgate, the prisoner's hands are empty. He looks at them for a moment. Hands are made for doing so many things. They lift, carry, cut, mend, shape, open, close, point, hold, exchange. In the ordinary life of a working man, they rarely remain idle for long. Yet here the hands may rest upon the knees simply because there is nothing immediately required of them. The difference is not merely boredom. It is the absence of purpose imposed from outside. A free laborer may complain of work, grow tired of it, wish for rest. But labor also divides a day into pieces. There is a task before a meal, another afterward, something that must be completed before darkness. Work gives time edges. Waiting softens those edges. An hour has no shape when nothing needs to be finished before it ends. A quiet conversation begins somewhere nearby. One prisoner speaks. Another responds. We cannot know their words, and there is no need to create them. Perhaps they speak about the prison. Perhaps about London. Perhaps about something entirely ordinary. The content has vanished from history. What remains plausible and human is simply that men confined together would sometimes talk. Their voices rise only enough to fill the immediate space. Then one of them gives a short laugh. It is not loud. It does not transform the mood of the room. Yet for a moment, the sound seems strangely alive against the stone. There is something worth noticing in that small laugh. Confinement does not require every human expression to become sorrowful. A prisoner can still find something amusing. He can still become irritated, sleepy, curious, hungry, distracted. He can remember a joke. He can dislike another man's habits. He can become tired of conversation and then wish someone would speak. The ordinary human self, does not disappear merely because a door has been locked. This is one reason we should resist imagining Newgate only through its darkest possibilities. A prison can be harsh without every moment being an image of suffering. The people inside continue to inhabit the full range of small human states. Our man listens to the conversation until his attention wanders. The light has moved again. He notices because there are so few competing sights. In a busy London street, the eye is pulled from one thing to another: people, animals, goods, signs, doorways, carts, buildings, mud, clothing, movement. Here, the visual world is reduced. The same surfaces return again and again. A person begins to notice tiny changes. A line of brightness on timber. The texture of mortar between stones. The shadow cast by another man's shoulder. The dull surface of iron. Dust visible only when it crosses the light. The room becomes familiar in the way a face becomes familiar, not because it changes greatly, but because the eye has nowhere else to go. A sound comes from the passage. This time, the prisoners barely react. They have heard many footsteps since dawn. The ability to ignore a sound is another kind of adaptation. Earlier, each approach of feet seemed to carry a possibility. Now the mind has begun sorting the prison into patterns. Some steps pass quickly. Some pause. Some are accompanied by keys. Some voices belong to people who never enter this room. The prisoner is learning the acoustics of confinement without intending to. The building teaches itself through repetition. A door far away does not sound like the door nearby. A person walking alone has a different rhythm from several people moving together. A voice from outside carries differently from a voice enclosed by stone. By afternoon, some of these distinctions have already become familiar, and yet one sound still draws attention more reliably than the others. The main movement of a lock close at hand. Metal turns. Conversation stops. Heads lift. For a few moments, everyone waits. Then the door opens. There is no sudden danger, no spectacle. The opening belongs to the ordinary administration of the prison. Perhaps someone needs to pass through. Perhaps water or some other necessity is involved. Perhaps one of the men is required elsewhere. The exact reason is not preserved for us, and so we allow the moment to remain simple. But the open door changes the air. A faint movement of cooler air reaches the room. The passage is visible again. Light enters differently. Our prisoner looks beyond the threshold as far as his position allows. The view offers very little, yet it is more than he had a moment before. A wall, part of a passage, movement. Another doorway, perhaps. Nothing that a free person would stop to admire. Still, his eyes remain there. Then the practical business is finished. The door closes. The lock returns to its place. The larger world becomes sound again. Our prisoner exhales and lowers his gaze. The moment has left no event behind it, only the memory of an opening. Somewhere in Newgate, money continues to shape experiences that are hidden from this room. Better accommodation exists. Prisoners who can afford it may enjoy greater comfort and more freedom within the limits of confinement. Historical records even indicate that wealthier prisoners could have access to upper halls, floors, or roof areas for exercise. The contrast is remarkable. Within the same prison, one person may see more daylight, move through a larger space, sleep more comfortably, and purchase things another cannot. The outer wall is shared. The inner experience is not. For a poor prisoner, the idea of another man exercising above him under better conditions might seem almost like another version of London itself, near enough to exist, distant enough to remain unavailable. But wealth should not be mistaken for freedom. The better room is still inside Newgate. The more comfortable bed is still a prisoner's bed. A window may offer more sky without allowing the person beneath it to walk toward that sky. Money can soften confinement. It cannot make the locked gate cease to matter. Our man reaches for water again when the opportunity comes. The vessel passes through hands. He drinks only what he needs. The water has no flavor worth describing, yet its coolness has become one of the day's dependable sensations. The body does not care about legal theory. It asks for water. It asks for food. It asks for warmth when cold. It asks for rest when tired. Much of prison administration, beneath all its regulations and payments, exists because these requests never stop. A man may be accused of theft, waiting for trial, held for debt, or confined for another legal reason. But the body continues its ordinary work without concern for the distinction. This may be why the surviving records about Newgate can feel unexpectedly intimate. They speak of water pipes, beds, blankets, candles, charcoal, privies, fees. These are not grand objects of medieval history. They do not belong to coronations or battles. Yet together they tell us how confinement felt at the level where life is actually lived. A bed tells us about the night. A candle tells us about darkness. Charcoal tells us about cold. A water pipe tells us about thirst. A fee tells us who could obtain relief and who might have to do without it. The prison appears most clearly not through spectacle, but through necessities. Our man has no reason to think of any of this as historical evidence. He simply feels thirsty, drinks, and lowers the vessel. His attention returns to the room. Someone has fallen asleep. The man's head rests awkwardly, his breathing deeper than before. Afternoon sleep may be one way to shorten an empty day. Another prisoner remains awake, his eyes following movements in the passage whenever the door or an opening allows them to be seen. Someone else murmurs a prayer again. No one responds. The prayer fades into the other sounds. Beyond Newgate, a bell eventually marks another moment in the city's day. We need not assign an exact hour to it. The sound travels into the prison without bringing a clock face with it. The men understand only that time has passed. Our prisoner closes his eyes. He does not sleep immediately. Behind the eyelids, the room changes from dim stone to darkness. The sounds become clearer. A cough, a shoe moving, the low scrape of something against the floor, a distant voice, the almost imperceptible movement of air. Farther away, the city. He listens. Without sight, London seems both closer and more impossible. A sound can cross the wall. He cannot. For a while, there is nothing else. Then someone nearby moves, and the prisoner opens his eyes again. The light has shifted farther. Afternoon is unmistakable now. The temperature inside the room has reached one of its warmer points. The stone beneath the hand remains cool, but the air has collected the presence of the people within it. The smell is stronger than it was at dawn. Human bodies, clothing, sanitation, damp material, perhaps smoke from elsewhere in the building. All of it occupies the same limited volume of air. Outside, the neighborhood contributes its own smells when the movement of air allows them to enter. Smithfield and the butchering district around Newgate belong to a city in which animals are not hidden from urban life. The nearby Fleet carries the accumulated waste of a crowded settlement. Fires burn throughout London. Trades create smoke and refuse. Food is cooked close to streets where animals pass. The prisoner's world is enclosed, but his nose still belongs to the city. There is a strange comfort in recognition. A familiar smell does not need to be pleasant to remind someone of ordinary life. Perhaps this is true of sound as well. A cart, a bell, a distant animal, voices outside. These are not beautiful things in themselves. Yet inside the prison they carry evidence that the city remains exactly where it was. Newgate has not transported him to another land. His former world may be only a short distance away. That closeness makes confinement peculiar. If he had been carried far from London, the distance itself would explain why he could not return to his ordinary life. Here, the separation can be measured in walls and doors. Home, work, acquaintances, familiar streets. Whatever his precise life contained, may exist somewhere within the same city whose sounds enter this room. The body is close. The life is far away. The afternoon continues. There may be opportunities for small activities among prisoners, but we should move carefully. Evidence from medieval prisons elsewhere shows gaming pieces, dice, boards, and other ways prisoners occupied time. Later evidence from Newgate itself shows prisoners making small carved objects from bone for sale. Such details reveal that confinement did not mean absolute inactivity. But we will not place a pile of dice into our prisoners' hands simply because another medieval prison has preserved them. Nor will we move the later bone, working evidence backward into this particular afternoon, and pretend it belongs securely to 1450. Historical silence deserves its own place in the room. Where we do not know, we can remain with what we do know. Men waited. Men spoke. Men ate what they could obtain. They received visitors and assistants. They used the prison's facilities. They paid for comforts when they had money. They lived through long hours, and so our prisoner lives through them too. He stretches his fingers, his nails, knuckles, skin, ordinary features of a working man's hands catch the afternoon light. For an instant he presses one palm into the other. Then he lets both hands fall. There is nothing to make, nothing we can truthfully place before him. So we do not. The restraint gives the moment an unusual calm. History is often filled with things because later storytellers fear emptiness. They give every king a speech, every soldier a heroic thought, every prisoner an escape plan. Silence seems unfinished, and so it is decorated. But most human lives contain enormous amounts of silence, especially here. A prisoner's afternoon does not need an escape attempt to become meaningful. The fact that he cannot simply leave is already present in every quiet minute. A little later, movement near the entrance draws attention once more. This time a voice is heard clearly enough to make several men look toward it. A visitor may have arrived for someone. Again, we will not decide that the visitor belongs to our prisoner. Another man moves closer to the permitted point of contact. The precise arrangements of the exchange need not be invented. What matters is the connection between inside and outside. Something has been brought. Food, perhaps, or another necessity. The visitor's presence changes the prisoner who receives it. His posture becomes more alert. His attention leaves the room and fixes on the person beyond it. For a few minutes, his confinement contains a piece of ordinary relationship. Then the visit ends. The person outside departs. The prisoner remains. The distinction is simple and almost cruel in its simplicity, though nothing violent has happened. One person turns and walks away. The other cannot follow. Our man watches the space where the visitor disappeared. He may wonder whether someone will come for him another day. We cannot say. But in a prison where outside support can determine food, bedding, and other necessities, a visitor is more than company. A visitor can materially alter the conditions of confinement. Family and friendship have weight here. So does their absence. The Christian culture surrounding medieval charity offers another connection. People beyond the prison might give money or food to those inside, even when they did not know them personally. Visiting prisoners and feeding those in need belonged to recognized acts of mercy. Charity therefore crosses the boundary in a different way from family support. One kind of help says, "I know you." Another says, "I do not know you, but you are still a person in need." For a poor prisoner, both can matter. The city that confines him is also the city from which assistance comes. This contradiction does not need resolution. Human communities are often like this. The same streets can carry the officer who brings a man to prison, and the person who later gives bread for prisoners. The same society builds the lock and the water pipe. It charges fees and leaves charitable gifts. It restricts and sustains. Newgate is not outside medieval London. It is one of the places where London's values, inequalities, fears, laws, commerce, religion, and compassion meet within the same walls. The prisoner does not need to understand the whole system. He only needs enough water for the afternoon, enough food to quiet hunger, enough warmth when evening comes, and eventually some answer about whether the door will open for him. The last of these is the one no charity can immediately provide. A legal process moves at its own pace. The uncertainty remains. Our man hears another name called somewhere in the building. It is not his. There is movement. A door opens. Voices. Footsteps. Then distance absorbs them. For the first time in a while, he looks down rather than toward the sound. Perhaps he has learned that responding to every name, every lock, every approaching step only makes the day more tiring. He breathes slowly. The afternoon light has begun to soften. Not yet evening. There is still a long portion of the day before darkness, but the harshest brightness has passed. The stone begins another gradual change in color. A warmer tone may touch whatever surfaces receive the declining light, while the deeper parts of the room remain gray. This shift is almost beautiful. Prison does not prevent light from being light. The sun does not know which building is a prison. It falls upon a church roof, a market stall, an animal's back, a wealthy merchant's window, a muddy street, and the stone of Newgate, without understanding any difference between them. Only people create the meanings of walls. For a few moments, the prisoner watches the brightness. He cannot possess it. No one can. Perhaps that is why light is one of the few things in Newgate that does not entirely belong to the prison economy. A candle can be bought. Fool can be bought. A better room can be paid for. But the afternoon itself arrives without asking who has money. Its distribution may be unequal because architecture decides where the rays enter, yet the day beyond the walls belongs to no prisoner and no keeper. It simply passes. The room grows quieter. The man who slept earlier wakes and adjusts his clothing. Another drinks. Someone scratches at the rough fabric near his shoulder. A few low words pass between men. Our prisoner changes position again. His body is tired despite having done almost nothing. Idleness can produce its own fatigue. The muscles are not exhausted from labor, yet the mind has spent hours listening, anticipating, waiting, measuring small changes. There is no achievement at the end of it, only more day. A sound from outside rises briefly above the others. The wheels of another cart. This one seems close. It rattles across the street, uneven and heavy, then continues away. The prisoner follows it until he can hear it no longer. Somewhere ahead of that cart, another street waits, then another, then perhaps a gate, a yard, a market, a house, a store of goods. The cart's world keeps unfolding as it moves. His does not. But he has begun to understand the room in greater detail than he did at dawn. He knows where the light reaches first. He recognizes some of the footsteps. He knows which parts of the stone remain cold. He knows the sound the nearby door makes before the lock turns fully. A person can become familiar with almost any place if enough time passes. Familiarity is not the same as comfort. It is simply the mind learning where it has been placed. Outside, the city begins the slow transformation that will eventually lead toward evening. Work has not stopped. Markets have not vanished. Streets are not yet quiet. But the light is moving, and with it the shape of the day. Inside, that movement brings practical questions closer. Light will become scarce. Temperature will fall. Those who can afford candles or fuel will possess comforts that matter more after sunset than they did at noon. The inequalities that daylight softened will become sharper when daylight leaves. For now, however, there is still enough brightness to see the faces in the room. Our prisoner looks toward the door one more time. Nothing happens. No name, no visitor, no message, only the door. He lowers his eyes. Somewhere beyond Newgate, a bell begins to sound again. Its first note reaches the stone. Then another follows. The prisoners hear it without speaking. The sound travels over the city that none of them can see in full, crossing roofs and streets before finding its way into the enclosed air. By the time the final vibration fades, the afternoon has moved a little farther on, and in the softer light that remains, the men settle once more into the patient, ordinary rhythm of waiting. The bell has faded, but its absence seems to leave a shape behind in the room. For a while, no one speaks. The afternoon has softened further, and the light entering Newgate has begun to lose the pale strength it carried near midday. What remains now is warmer, lower, less certain. It lies across the stone for a little while, then gradually withdraws from it. Our prisoner notices this movement because there is still so little else to measure. A few hours ago, the brightest part of the day seemed almost fixed in place. Now the light is clearly leaving. The change brings no immediate alarm. It is simply another stage of the day. But darkness means something inside Newgate that daylight does not. During the day, even a poor prisoner may receive whatever natural light reaches his part of the building. At night, illumination becomes more dependent upon resources. Prison lamps may provide light in common areas and passages, but this does not mean every room glows warmly after sunset. Candles cost money. Fuel costs money. Comfort has a price. As afternoon moves toward evening, those facts become more visible. Somewhere in the prison, a man with greater means may already be thinking about a candle. Another may have charcoal. Someone else may have a better room, a window. Bedding brought from outside, perhaps enough money to make the coming night less uncomfortable. Our prisoner has much less to arrange. His evening will depend largely upon what is already around him. The room, the other men, whatever food remains available, water, the clothes on his body, the light while it lasts. He shifts his shoulders against the wall. The stone feels different now, not colder yet, but no longer warmed by the strongest part of the day. The air still contains the heat of several people sharing an enclosed space. though the first suggestion of evening seems to have entered before the temperature itself has changed. Outside, London continues working. The city does not stop simply because the light begins to decline. Some trades continue. Goods are still carried. People finish errands. Animals move through streets. Fires are tended. Meals begin to be prepared in houses, taverns, workshops, and other places where people expect to spend the approaching darkness. Doors that stood open for much of the day will eventually close. People will return somewhere. That last thought has a different meaning inside the prison. For most of the city, evening is a movement toward a familiar place. For the prisoner, there is nowhere else to return to. Newgate is already where the day will leave him. A cart passes outside. Its wheels make a rough sound against the street. He has heard many such carts now, enough that this one draws only part of his attention. Yet something has changed. The sound no longer belongs to the busy beginning of a day. It belongs to people finishing things. The prisoner can hear the direction of the city, even when he cannot see it. Morning moved outward. Evening begins to gather inward. People will soon look toward homes, rooms, fires, meals, beds. The prison cannot follow that rhythm in the same way. It has its own evening. A voice in the room says something quietly. Someone answers. The men have spent enough hours together for silence and speech to alternate without ceremony. There is no need to fill every minute with conversation. Even companionship can become tiring when it cannot be left behind. A man who wants solitude has very little of it. A man who wants company may have too much of the wrong kind. This is another small contradiction of confinement. The prisoner is rarely entirely alone, yet he can still feel isolated. Other bodies surround him. Other voices share the air. Other men wait behind the same walls. But each person carries his own legal uncertainty, his own memories, his own hopes about the door. They occupy the same room without occupying the same future. Our prisoner looks toward one of the others. The man's face is now partly shadowed. Earlier, daylight revealed more detail. Now the changing angle begins to erase it again. A cheek disappears into dimness. A fold of clothing becomes harder to distinguish from the wall behind it. The prison slowly returns to the visual simplicity of dawn. But evening is not merely morning reversed. At dawn there was an entire day ahead. Now the day has been lived. Nothing has happened to resolve our prisoner's situation. No judgment, no release, no visitor for him. No message that changes the direction of his life. Yet the hours are not empty simply because they produced no conclusion. He has drunk, eaten, listened, waited, moved a few steps, watched doors open for others. He has felt the room warm and begin to cool again. He has learned which sounds belong nearby and which belong farther away. He has discovered how slowly a patch of light can cross stone. These are small things, but prison life is made largely from small things. History often notices the moment a person is arrested, sentenced, released, or punished. A prisoner experiences everything between those moments, and most of what lies between them is waiting. The passage outside becomes active again. Footsteps approach in pairs, then separate. A key turns somewhere beyond the room. Voices move through the building. The change may be connected with the ordinary routines of the prison as daylight wanes. We do not know enough to assign a strict sequence of evening procedures, and so we will not invent one. We allow the movement to remain what it is. Doors, people, tasks, a building preparing for darkness in ways that do not need to be fully visible to us. One door closes with more force than the others. The sound travels through timber and stone. Several prisoners lift their heads. Then they return to stillness. Our man has become familiar enough with Newgate to understand that not every sound is about him. That knowledge does not remove uncertainty. It simply makes uncertainty less exhausting. Earlier in the day, every footstep seemed to contain a question. Now some footsteps are allowed to pass without being answered. Perhaps this is one way the mind begins adapting to confinement. It cannot remain alert to everything forever. Expectation must rest. The prisoner lets his head touch the wall behind him. For a while, his eyes close. He can still hear the city. Its noises are changing. There are fewer of some sounds, more of others. The heavy movement of working hours begins to loosen. Voices may carry differently as streets gradually change their purpose. Somewhere, fires used for cooking produce smoke. Somewhere, people gather around simple evening food. Somewhere, a person removes shoes after standing most of the day. These are ordinary acts. They happen beyond the wall without anyone thinking of them as freedom. A man sits beside his own fire. A woman closes a door from the inside. A child moves through a room without permission from a keeper. A worker places down a tool and knows the day's labor is finished. Our prisoner cannot know these exact people, and we will not invent them into his memories. But the city contains thousands of such ordinary endings to the working day. Newgate contains another kind. The prisoner opens his eyes again. The light is weaker. Someone has received food. Perhaps it has come from outside. Perhaps it is part of charitable provisions available to poor prisoners. We cannot construct a fixed evening ration because the records do not provide one. But hunger returns whether the documents record a menu or not. The body remembers how long it has been since the last food. A small amount of something simple becomes noticeable. If bread is present, its smell seems stronger in the enclosed room than it would in the open street. Someone who has more may share. Someone who has less may wait. Someone with money may obtain ale. Newgate allows these differences to remain visible even as darkness begins to make faces less distinct. Our prisoner receives enough to quiet his hunger for a while. He eats slowly again. The motion is familiar now, A hand lifts. The mouth closes around a bite, chewing, swallowing. A little water. There is no conversation required. The repetition itself is comforting. The meal gives the day another small boundary. Morning food. Midday, now evening. The legal world may offer no clear schedule for his release, but the body creates its own divisions: hungry, fed, thirsty, satisfied, cold, warmer, asleep. Human time continues even when institutional time feels uncertain. When the food is gone, he wipes his fingers against his clothing in a small practical gesture. Another prisoner drinks. Somewhere beyond the room, a man laughs briefly. The sound is more distant than the laughter heard earlier in the day. It echoes through the building, loses its shape, and disappears. For a moment, our prisoner listens. Then silence returns. The light continues withdrawing. This is when the inequality of illumination begins to matter more. A wealthy prisoner may have access to a candle. A poorer man may depend on whatever light reaches the room from a corridor lamp, another space, or the fading sky. The records concerning prison lamps show that artificial light existed in Newgate. But light is not evenly distributed simply because lamps exist. A passage can be lit while a room remains dim. A candle can burn for one man while another sits in darkness. Even the ability to see after sunset can become a marker of wealth. Our prisoner watches the walls lose detail. At first, color disappears. Then texture becomes uncertain. The outlines of other men remain visible longer than the smaller objects around them. Faces become pale areas suspended above darker clothing. The door stays visible because the mind knows where it is. Eventually, much of the room will be remembered more than seen. Outside, there is still daylight. The city retains the last part of the afternoon. Somewhere above the roofs, the sky must still hold brightness. The prisoner may not see it directly. He knows it through what remains in the room. Light is always telling him about a world beyond his view. Its presence means the sky is still open somewhere. Its fading means evening is spreading over London. No wall can stop that movement. The same declining day touches Smithfield. It passes over roofs. It reaches churches. It moves along the polluted Fleet. It falls upon the stones outside Newgate and whatever small openings allow it to enter. For the city, this is simply evening. For the prisoner, it is the gradual removal of one of the few free comforts he has received all day. Daylight costs nothing. Darkness reveals what does. Someone in the room adjusts his bedding. The sound of cloth draws attention to the approaching night. This is another place where wealth matters. Prisoners could bring their own bedding or arrange to obtain beds and blankets for payment. The fact that such options existed tells us that sleeping conditions were not identical. We should not imagine every prisoner lying in a neat row on identical straw pallets. Nor should we imagine everyone on bare stone. There were differences. there were choices for those who could afford choices. For the poor, there was whatever could be obtained. Our prisoner has little. He may have some covering or shared sleeping arrangement available to him, but we will not invent the exact materials where the evidence does not tell us. What we can know is simpler. Night will be colder than afternoon. Stone will release the warmth it gathered, and whatever separates the body from that cold will matter. The man runs a hand over his sleeve. The cloth is worn but familiar. For much of the day, clothing has been merely something he wears. Now it begins to become insulation. The same garment that once marked his modest place in the outside world becomes one of the few barriers between his body and the coming night. An object can change meaning without changing form. A coat outside is clothing. Inside Newgate, it is warmth. A candle outside is ordinary light. Inside, it can become a privilege. A piece of bread outside is food. Inside, it can become security for the next few hours. A door outside connects rooms. Here, it divides lives. The prison does not create new objects. It changes their importance. The passage brightens briefly. Perhaps a lamp has been lit somewhere beyond. The light is different from daylight. Warmer, smaller, more localized. It does not fill the room evenly. Instead, it touches one surface and leaves another untouched. For the prisoners, artificial light may make darkness feel deeper by comparison. The eye follows the brighter passage. Then the light shifts as someone moves. A shadow crosses it. For a moment, our man can see the edge of the door more clearly. Then the shadow is gone. The lamp continues burning somewhere outside his immediate space. It is enough to remind him that the building itself remains awake. Night does not mean Newgate stops functioning. Keepers still exist beyond the door. Locks remain. People may move through passages. The prison has its own nocturnal life. But it will not become a dramatic world of constant danger. There is no need for screams in the distance. No need for violence hidden behind every wall. The ordinary sounds are powerful enough. A key, a step, a cough, a low conversation, the soft movement of bedding, a vessel placed down, breathing, the faint city beyond. These sounds are more faithful to the world we are trying to enter. They are also more intimate. A prison at night does not need spectacle to feel different from a house. The difference is in who controls the door. The prisoner stands once more while there is still enough light to move comfortably. His legs have stiffened again. He takes the few steps available. The room has not become larger since midday, yet darkness changes its proportions. When the edges are harder to see, space can feel both smaller and less certain. He knows where the wall is because he has touched it many times. He knows where the other men sit. He knows where the door stands. The room is becoming a map learned through repetition. He takes another step, turns, returns, a few steps, turn, back again. The body performs the smallest possible journey. No destination, only movement. Perhaps somewhere above, wealthier prisoners have access to more space for exercise. Our man has what is before him. He stops. His breathing has changed only slightly. There is no exertion. Still, the movement feels useful. For several minutes his body has done something other than wait. He sits again. The floor or seat beneath him feels harder after standing. A man nearby shifts as well. The room settles. Outside, the final working sounds of the day gradually alter. Newgate lies in a city where nights are genuinely dark by modern standards. There is no electric glow waiting beyond the windows, no permanent brightness above the streets. Lamps, candles, hearths, and fires create islands of light. As the sun leaves London, darkness returns to the spaces between them. Inside the prison, this transition is even more pronounced. A corridor lamp may reveal stone nearby, while leaving the deeper room almost untouched. A wealthier prisoner may preserve his own small circle of candlelight. A poor man may simply allow the day to disappear. There is something strangely democratic about darkness at first. It removes the visible signs of wealth. Fine bedding and poor clothing both lose detail. Faces vanish. Stone and timber become similar shades, but the equality is incomplete. The man who can buy light still sees. The man who can buy fuel stays warmer. The man who can pay for a better room may sleep more comfortably. Darkness hides inequality from the eye, while the body continues to feel it. Our prisoner's hands grow cooler. He folds his arms. The movement traps a little warmth close to his chest. Someone else pulls cloth around the shoulders. The room is not yet truly cold. Evening has only begun its descent, but the direction is clear. Warmth is leaving. A smell of smoke is more noticeable now. Perhaps fuel burns elsewhere in the building. Perhaps the city outside contributes to it. We cannot identify its exact source. The scent mingles with stone, bodies, clothing, sanitation, and the broader odors of the neighborhood. At night, smell can become more important because sight offers less. The prisoner's world shifts from visual detail toward sound, temperature, touch, and air. A person learns darkness through the body. The fingertips notice rough stone. The ears notice footsteps farther away. The nose notices smoke. The skin notices cooling air. The eyes slowly stop asking to see everything. This is another form of adaptation. Earlier, the prisoner learned the sounds of the day. Now he begins learning the room without light. A foot brushes against something. Someone murmurs an apology or acknowledgement too softly for us to know the words. Another person shifts. The small sounds make the location of bodies visible in the mind. No one needs to speak loudly. The room is close enough for quiet voices. A distant bell reaches them again. This time it seems different, perhaps only because darkness is nearer. The sound lasts for several moments. No one counts the exact hour for us. No one needs to. The day has plainly entered its later phase. The prisoner's thoughts may move toward the legal uncertainty waiting beyond this night. But we should not write a speech inside his mind. We do not know his exact fears. We do not know whether he expects release, conviction, acquittal, bail, or some other outcome. We know only that he remains here. The uncertainty itself is historical enough. He does not need invented words to make it human. Sometimes silence contains more truth than a monologue. The bell fades. A door opens in the passage. The warmer artificial light spreads briefly into the room. This time someone carrying or tending the light passes close enough that several faces become visible for a few seconds. The transformation is remarkable. Eyes appear, noses cast shadows, the rough surfaces of clothes regain texture. The iron on the door reflects a small brightness. Then the moving light continues. Faces disappear again. The moment is over. A medieval interior at night is made of such temporary illuminations. Light belongs to flames. Flames move. Flames consume fuel. Nothing about them is permanent. A candle grows shorter as it gives light. A fire requires more charcoal or wood. Every hour of warmth uses something that must be replaced. For a poor prisoner, darkness is the cheapest state of the room. Our man remains still. He can hear someone eating what may be the last of something kept from earlier. A quiet chewing sound. A swallow. Then nothing. Food has already become tomorrow's question. Will there be enough? Will charity arrive? Will anyone visit? Will money somehow be available? The prisoner's needs renew themselves every day. Water today does not satisfy tomorrow's thirst. Bread today does not solve tomorrow's hunger. Warmth tonight does not keep the next night away. This may be another reason prison time feels repetitive. Needs return. The walls remain. The legal process moves somewhere beyond view. And each morning, the body asks for the same things again. Our prisoner stretches his legs before settling them. He is tired now. Not from work, from the duration of the day. Waiting can exhaust the mind while leaving the muscles restless. He has listened for his name so many times that even when he no longer raises his head at every footstep, part of him still hears the possibility. A name called elsewhere, a door opening, a visitor, a key. Each is a small reminder that change exists. It simply has not arrived for him. The city outside is quieter than before. Not silent, never entirely silent. There are still people moving. Animals, late work, doors, occasional wheels, voices. But the density of sound has thinned. The prisoner can hear individual noises more clearly now because fewer compete with them. A pair of footsteps passes beyond the wall. Someone speaks. A dog may bark somewhere in the city. Then space opens between sounds. London is beginning to rest. Newgate does not rest in the same way. A free person who lies down at night may know where he intends to wake. Our prisoner knows only where he probably will. The same walls, the same door, the same uncertain day waiting to begin again. But we are not yet at that next morning. There are still hours between. The first true darkness enters the room. Whatever daylight remained has become too weak to define surfaces. Artificial light from outside now matters more than the sky. The prisoner's eyes adjust. The warm glow from the passage makes a narrow portion of the room visible. The rest is shadow. Someone speaks quietly about something we cannot hear. Another responds. Then both fall silent. The lack of conversation does not feel empty anymore. The men have spent the entire day together. Silence has become another shared activity. The prisoner's breathing slows. His body is preparing for rest, even if sleep is still some distance away. The temperature continues to fall. His hands disappear into folds of clothing where they can remain warmer. Around him, others make similar small adjustments. No one announces that night has come. The body understands before language is necessary. Our man listens to the room. A person breathes nearby. Another shifts. Somewhere in the passage, iron touches iron. The sound is brief and clean. A lock perhaps being checked. A door secured. The practical work of confinement continuing into darkness. For a moment, he imagines nothing. He simply hears it. Then the building returns to quiet. This is not yet the final stillness of the night. People are still awake. Lamps still burn somewhere. The city beyond has not completely withdrawn. But the day that began in darkness has now crossed its brightest hours and returned to darkness again. Our prisoner has gone nowhere, and yet an entire London day has moved around him. The thought need not be spoken. It exists in the difference between morning and now. A patch of light crossed the wall. Food arrived and disappeared. Water passed through his hands. Visitors came for others and left again. Footsteps approached and receded. The city grew loud and slowly grew quiet. His name was not called. The door remained the most important object in the room. Now even that door is mostly shadow. A small glow from the passage catches part of its ironwork. The prisoner looks toward it. Not with the same expectation he had earlier, perhaps only from habit. A door can be watched even when no one expects it to open. The mind likes possibility, even a locked possibility. He turns his gaze away. Someone near him begins arranging whatever sleeping comfort is available. Another man settles against the wall. The sounds of preparation are restrained and practical. Cloth, a shoe moved aside, a body lowering itself, a quiet breath. Our prisoner does not lie down yet. There is still enough wakefulness in him to remain seated. The stone behind his back is colder now than it was in the afternoon. He feels it through the cloth. Above and beyond the prison, London has entered the early part of night. Some windows or rooms hold candlelight. Fires burn behind walls. Elsewhere, darkness lies between buildings. The fleet continues moving whether anyone watches it or not. Animals remain somewhere near their stalls. The stones of Smithfield cool. Smoke drifts above roofs. Churches stand in darkness broken, only where flame is kept. The city has not stopped existing. It has merely become less visible. Inside Newgate, the same is true. The prison remains full of lives. Some sleep, some wait, some speak quietly. Some may still have visitors in other circumstances, though the day's opportunities narrow as night deepens. Some possess candlelight, some do not. Some lie beneath better coverings, some endure more cold. The prison contains many nights at once. Our prisoner has only his own. He lifts his hands and rubs them together once more. The friction creates a little warmth. Then he lets them rest. From somewhere far beyond the walls comes another faint sound from the city. It is too indistinct to identify. He listens anyway. For several seconds it seems almost to approach. Then it disappears. The man beside him has become still. The passage light flickers. A moving flame creates shadows on the stone. One shadow lengthens, another shortens. The wall appears to breathe, though of course it does not. Fire makes fixed things seem alive. The prisoner watches until the pattern changes again. Soon the room will settle further. The city will quiet more. Cold will strengthen. But those hours are still ahead of us. For now the early darkness is new enough that several men remain awake, their faces appearing and disappearing whenever the weak light outside the room shifts. Newgate has not fallen silent. It has only changed its voice. The loud movement of the day has become the smaller language of night. A key somewhere in the distance. A low exchange between two men. The soft scrape of leather. A cough, the faint hiss of a flame, breathing, and beyond all of it, almost too far away to separate from imagination, the sleeping city beginning to gather around the prison walls. The faint sounds beyond the walls become harder to separate from one another as the night deepens. A voice from the street may reach Newgate for a moment and then vanish beneath stone. Somewhere a door closes, somewhere an animal moves. Farther away, there may be wheels crossing a street, though fewer now than during the day. The city has not disappeared. It has only become quieter, leaving more space between one sound and the next. Inside the prison, those spaces seem wider. Our prisoner remains seated for a little longer. The light in the passage is weak enough now that the room is defined mostly by shadow. When a flame moves somewhere beyond the door, the stone briefly appears, then recedes again. The faces around him have become outlines. What seemed familiar in daylight must now be understood through memory. He knows where the wall stands. He knows where another man has settled. He knows approximately where the vessel of water has been placed. He knows where the door is, even when he can no longer see every part of it. A day in the same room has taught him its shape. Darkness does not remove that knowledge. It only changes the sense through which it is held. One of the prisoners lowers himself into whatever sleeping arrangement is available to him. Cloth moves softly. Another remains sitting. Perhaps some of the men will sleep quickly. Others may take longer. Confinement does not guarantee rest simply because darkness has arrived. A person can be exhausted and still remain awake. The mind has spent the day listening for change. It does not necessarily surrender that habit when the light disappears. A key turns somewhere in Newgate. The sound is distant. Our prisoner does not move. Earlier, such a sound might have pulled his attention immediately toward the door. Now it enters the room and leaves again without changing his position. His body has learned something during these hours. Not every key is his key. Not every opening concerns him. Not every approaching footstep carries news. Expectation cannot remain at full strength forever. Sometimes it must dim with the lamps. The man draws his clothing closer around himself. The temperature has fallen gradually enough that no single moment can be called the beginning of cold. It simply becomes noticeable. Stone holds very little sympathy for the body. Its surface remains cool, and as the warmth of the day leaves the building, that coolness becomes more present. For wealthier prisoners, fuel could soften the night. A candle might offer light. Better bedding could separate the body more effectively from cold surfaces and cooling air. For the poor, each layer of comfort depends more heavily upon what has been brought, borrowed, rented, purchased, or given. Our prisoner has only what is available to him. He does not compare it aloud with another man's bed. He simply adjusts himself. A shoulder moves. A leg bends. Hands disappear beneath cloth. Small choices become the architecture of comfort. This is how people have always made nights bearable. Not through grand solutions, but through tiny adjustments. A little warmer here. A little softer there. Turn the body. Move the arm. Find a place for the head. Wait for sleep. Around him. Newgate begins to sound less like a public building and more like a collection of breathing bodies. A cough comes from somewhere in the dark. Then another sound of movement. A man whispers something. No answer comes at first. Then a second voice replies briefly. The words are too quiet for us to know. Soon both voices stop. The silence that follows feels different from the silence of afternoon. Daytime silence was surrounded by activity. There were carts, visitors, doors, food, movement, bells, conversations, water. The possibility of business occurring somewhere beyond the room. Night reduces those possibilities. The world contracts further, yet the reduction is not absolute. Somewhere, keepers remain awake or move through the prison. Somewhere, a lamp burns. Somewhere, another prisoner cannot sleep. The building remains alive. Our man lowers himself more fully now. We will not decide whether he lies upon a bed, a rented covering, some other available bedding, or a simpler arrangement. The evidence tells us enough to know that sleeping conditions varied and depended upon means. It does not tell us precisely what supports this particular man's body tonight. So we leave the surface unnamed. We stay instead with what he can feel. The weight of his own body after a day of stillness, the cloth against his skin, the cool air near his face, the harder boundary beneath him, the faint smell of people, stone, smoke, and the lingering conditions of the prison, the breathing of another man not far away. He closes his eyes. The darkness changes almost nothing. For a while he continues listening. There is a strange difference between choosing to close one's eyes and having nothing to see. The first is voluntary. The second belongs to night. Still, the act gives him a small boundary of his own. He cannot control the door. He cannot control the legal process. He cannot control when another person enters the room. But he can close his eyes. It is not freedom in any legal sense. It is only one ordinary action that still belongs entirely to him. His breathing gradually becomes slower. The city beyond Newgate has quieted further. Perhaps somewhere in London a hearth still burns brightly. Perhaps someone remains awake over work. Perhaps a late traveler makes his way through a street. Perhaps a household has already settled into sleep. We need not follow any of them. Their lives exist beyond the prison without needing to be invented in detail. The important thing is that they exist. Thousands of people now lie beneath roofs throughout the city. Some are wealthy, some poor, some warm, some cold, some alone, some surrounded by family. Most will never enter Newgate. Most will never know that at this same moment. A nameless man behind its walls is listening to the same distant city. They share darkness without sharing circumstance. Above them, the same night covers London. It touches tiled roofs and timber walls. It settles over streets that were busy hours earlier. It lies above Smithfield. It covers the water of the Fleet, polluted though it is. It surrounds churches whose bells will sound again. It reaches the outer stone of Newgate and the small openings through which daylight entered earlier. Night does not distinguish a prison from a house. People do. The darkness itself simply arrives. A faint movement in the passage causes the weak light outside the room to change. Our prisoner opens his eyes. A shadow passes. For a few seconds, the glow strengthens along one edge of the doorway. Someone carrying or tending a light moves somewhere beyond. The flame is not visible for long. Its presence can be understood from the way the shadows respond. Stone appears. Iron catches a dull glimmer. Then the light moves away. The room returns to deeper darkness. The prisoner closes his eyes again. A flame has passed, and with it another small portion of the night. Time inside Newgate is difficult to measure now. During daylight, the movement of brightness across the room gave the hours a visible direction. At night, time must be understood differently. Through the number of times a man wakes, through the cooling air, through lamps burning lower, through distant bells, through the changing sounds of people sleeping, through the body's own sense of duration. An hour can pass almost unnoticed in sleep. Another can feel enormous while awake. The night has no obligation to divide itself evenly. Our prisoner does not know how long he lies still before his eyes open again. Perhaps only a short while. Perhaps longer. No precise clock survives inside his experience for us to read. The room remains dark. Someone nearby is breathing deeply and regularly now. Another man shifts in his sleep. There is a soft friction of cloth, then stillness. Our prisoner listens for the city. For a few moments, he cannot hear it at all. Newgate seems to exist by itself, stone, darkness, breathing. Then, somewhere far away, a sound reaches him. It may be a bell. Its first vibration is faint. Another follows. The sound crosses the sleeping city and enters through whatever rote's walls and openings permit. A bell in darkness feels larger than the same bell in daytime. There is less noise to compete with it. Each note has room to travel. Our prisoner listens until it is gone. The bell does not tell him what will happen tomorrow. It does not promise release. It does not announce a judgment. It does only one thing with certainty. It tells him that time continues outside the prison. That may be enough. The man turns slightly. His body searches for another comfortable position. Sleep does not come immediately. Perhaps his mind returns to the door. Not with urgency. Simply because the door has occupied so much of his attention throughout the day. In darkness, he cannot see it clearly, but he knows where it stands. A locked door is an unusual object. Its entire meaning depends upon the difference between one side and the other. Timber is only timber. Iron is only iron. A lock is a small mechanism. Together in the right place, they can reduce a man's world to a room. Yet the door also contains the possibility of change. Walls do not open. Doors can. Tomorrow, perhaps someone will turn the key. Perhaps not for him. Perhaps for him. There is no reason to decide tonight. Uncertainty need not become fear in every moment. Sometimes it can simply remain uncertainty. The prisoner lets the thought pass. His eyes close. This time sleep comes more quietly. The room disappears from him. For a while, there is no Newgate in his awareness. No legal process. No passage. No door. Only the absence of waking thought. The body rests where it can. And while he sleeps, the prison continues without requiring anything from him. Someone turns in the darkness. A keeper may pass in a corridor. A lamp burns lower. A flame consumes a little more fuel. The air cools. A distant city settles further into silence. The fleet continues its slow course. The stones outside release the warmth gathered during daylight. Animals shift in places where they have been kept overnight. Somewhere, a hearth collapses inward, glowing less brightly than before. Somewhere else, a candle is extinguished because there is no reason to spend more wax. Darkness expands wherever flame disappears. Newgate is part of this same economy of night. Every light costs something. Every fire consumes something. The poorest spaces grow dark first and remain dark longest. Our prisoner sleeps through some of it. When he wakes again, the cold is more noticeable. He draws himself inward. Another man's breathing continues nearby. The fact that others are present may offer no material warmth from a fire, but human bodies make a shared room different from an empty one. The air carries their presence. So does sound. Complete silence might be more unsettling. Instead, there is always some evidence that he is not alone. A breath, a movement, a faint cough, the quiet scrape of cloth. These noises have followed humans through sleeping places for as long as people have gathered beneath roofs. A prison does not make them different. Only the reason for being together is different. He lies awake. There is little to do. The same boredom that occupied the afternoon returns in another form. At night, however, it becomes less visible. The eyes do not have the wall to study. The hands do not have enough light for an occupation, even if one were available. The prisoner's attention moves inward. We will not give him elaborate thoughts he never recorded. We do not know whether he thinks about his accusation, whether he believes himself wronged, whether he regrets anything, whether he imagines a particular person outside, whether he is frightened of what may come. Those thoughts belong to him, not to us. Historical compassion does not require us to speak for the dead. Sometimes it is enough to remain nearby, to hear what they might have heard, to feel the kind of cold they could have felt, to understand the limits around them, and then to allow silence to remain silence, so we stay quietly beside him. The prison breathes, London sleeps. The night moves. Nothing must happen. After some time, the prisoner sleeps again. The hours become indistinct. A man wakes, drinks if water is available, then settles. Someone whispers. A door in another part of the building opens and closes. A lamp may be tended. Later, even those sounds grow less frequent. The deepest portion of night arrives without ceremony. This may be the quietest Newgate has been all day. The prison still contains uncertainty, poverty, legal power, locked doors, and unequal comfort. None of those things have vanished. Yet, while so many of its occupants sleep, they momentarily lose some of their visible force. A wealthy prisoner beneath better bedding, and a poor prisoner under less protection, both breathe in darkness. One remains more comfortable, but both have surrendered the waking hours. The legal machinery that determines their futures is not operating visibly in this room. There is no hearing now, no transaction, no visitor, no payment. Night places the unanswered questions aside for a few hours. They will still exist when people wake. For now they are quiet. Our prisoner sleeps. His body, which spent the day doing very little yet, becoming increasingly tired, finally accepts stillness without resisting it. There are no footsteps to follow with attention, no approaching voice that requires him to raise his head, no food to wait for, no moving patch of daylight to measure. The day has released him from the need to observe it. This may be the closest thing Newgate offers tonight to escape. Not a tunnel, not an opened gate, not a dramatic flight across London. Sleep. For a while, the mind does not need permission to go elsewhere. We do not need to know where it goes. Dreams are not part of our evidence. We will not invent one. We allow him the privacy of unconsciousness. The old traveler remains only at the edge of the room, listening, waiting, letting the hours pass. At some unknown point, the darkness begins changing. Not visibly at first. The shift begins elsewhere, beyond walls and roofs. The night is still deep inside Newgate, but outside, the world is moving slowly toward another dawn. No ray reaches the room yet. No prisoner rises because of it. The change belongs first to the sky. London remains largely asleep. Then, almost imperceptibly, the blackness beyond the city begins to soften. The same process that began the previous day is beginning again. Night does not end in an instant. It loosens. The city waits beneath it. The prison waits too. Inside the room, our prisoner turns in his sleep. His clothing shifts. A man nearby exhales deeply. The air remains cold. Stone has spent the night releasing whatever warmth it held. If fuel has burned elsewhere, some fires may now be low. Candles that were kept lit have consumed themselves little by little. The cheapest and most abundant light will return only when the sky provides it. Still, we are not leaving yet. The darkness before dawn has its own stillness. It carries no expectation of immediate resolution. Tomorrow's legal uncertainty has not entered the room as an event. The prisoner remains asleep. The door remains locked. Newgate remains Newgate. Outside, the same streets that filled with carts and voices yesterday lie far quieter now. Soon that will change. People will rise. Fires will be stirred. Animals will move. Water will be carried. Markets and workshops will return to life. Smithfield will again become a place of movement and trade. The neighborhood around Newgate will again fill with the practical noise and smell of the city. But none of it has begun in full. This is the narrow space between the sleeping city and the working city. A few sounds return before light does. Perhaps footsteps somewhere outside. Perhaps a distant door. Then another. The prisoner's eyes remain closed. We can already feel the pattern returning, not because every day in Newgate is identical. Someone may be released today. Someone may arrive. Someone may receive a visitor. Someone's legal position may change. The prison is not frozen, but its basic needs will return with morning. Water, food, warmth, light, movement, waiting. Human bodies ask again for what yesterday already provided. A new day does not cancel hunger simply because the previous day contained a meal. It does not preserve yesterday's warmth. It does not answer yesterday's uncertainty. Each morning begins by reopening ordinary needs. This repetition is not unique to prison. Outside the walls, Londoners also wake hungry. They also light fires again. They also work again. They also eat, drink, grow tired, and sleep. The difference lies not in having needs. The difference lies in the freedom to move among them. Soon, someone outside Newgate will open a door because he chooses to leave a house. Inside, a prisoner will hear a door open because someone else has chosen to open it. The gesture may sound the same. Its meaning could not be more different. A little gray begins entering the world, not enough to illuminate the room, only enough that darkness is no longer quite as complete. The transition is delicate. The edges of things remain hidden, but eventually one surface begins to separate from another. Stone emerges, then timber, then perhaps the shape of a sleeping man. The prison slowly returns to sight. Our prisoner wakes before the room is fully visible. For a few seconds, perhaps he lies without moving. There is always a brief moment after waking when place must be remembered. Then the body recognizes the surface beneath it. The air, the nearby breathing, the wall. Newgate returns. He opens his eyes. Nothing dramatic waits for him. The door has not opened during sleep. No message has appeared. No one has quietly removed the accusation. He is simply awake. Another day exists. Yet something has changed. Not in his legal situation. In the light, a faint gray has entered. It touches stone so weakly that it seems less like illumination than the promise of illumination. The prisoner watches it. Yesterday morning, he may have watched much the same process. Today, perhaps he notices it differently. Familiarity has begun. He knows that the room will slowly reveal itself. He knows footsteps will increase. He knows water will matter. He knows hunger will eventually arrive. He knows the city outside will grow louder. The unknown world of his first morning has become a pattern. This does not mean he has accepted confinement. It means the mind has learned its surroundings. Human beings do this almost everywhere. A strange room becomes familiar. An unfamiliar sound gains a name. A path becomes easier after being walked several times. Even a prison can become known. The thought is both comforting and sad. The ability to adapt keeps people alive, but adaptation can make almost anything feel ordinary. One of the other men wakes. He shifts, sits slowly, and waits. No greeting is necessary. The room is not beginning a story, it is continuing one. Outside, another sound reaches Newgate, then another. London is waking. Our prisoner remains still for a while longer. He looks toward the place where daylight will strengthen. The city beyond the walls does not know that we have spent these hours beside him. The cart driver, who will soon pass Newgate, does not know. The people moving animals through Smithfield do not know. The person who may later leave a charitable gift does not know. The keeper walking through the passage may not know anything about this man's private experience of time. Most ordinary lives pass this way, unrecorded in their smallest details. History preserves a regulation about a lamp, a payment for bedding, a repair to a privy, a pipe carrying water, a complaint over restraints, a charitable gift, a legal session, and between those surviving fragments lived thousands of minutes that no document thought to keep. A man drank water. A man became cold. A man listened to a bell. A man waited for his name. A man slept. Those moments disappeared. But perhaps they are where history is most human. Not in the great event. In the ordinary body moving quietly through time. The light becomes a little stronger. A face appears across the room. Then another. The door slowly regains its shape. Iron fittings become faintly visible. Soon footsteps will begin. Perhaps they already have, somewhere deeper in the building. Our prisoner listens. A sound approaches. His head turns slightly. For the briefest moment, yesterday's instinct returns. Possibility. Then the steps pass farther along the corridor. He relaxes again. There will be other footsteps, other doors, other names. Perhaps eventually his own. We do not need to hear it. The purpose of this day was never to discover his sentence. His uncertainty belongs beyond the edge of our journey. The world does not need to resolve itself because we are preparing to leave it. Newgate will continue after our attention moves elsewhere. Water will continue through the pipe. Privies will need repair. Candles will be bought. Fuel will burn. All will be sold. Charity will cross the walls. Poor prisoners will depend upon people they know and people they do not. Money will continue to soften confinement for some more than for others. Doors will open. Doors will close. London will continue outside. Another prisoner will look toward a patch of daylight. Another will listen to a cart moving farther away. Another will discover that a locked room changes the meaning of simple things. Bread, water, warmth, light, a voice, a step, a door. The gray light strengthens. The room has returned almost to the place where we first found it, but not entirely. No moment truly repeats. The people in it are a day older. The water that will be drunk today is not yesterday's. The light entering now has crossed a different morning sky. Even stone that appears unchanged has spent another night cooling beneath London. Time moves even where people cannot. Perhaps that is the quiet truth hidden within the walls. Confinement can limit distance. It cannot stop time. The prisoner may remain in the same few yards while the city moves through morning, noon, afternoon, evening, darkness, and dawn. The sun continues without asking whether he is free. The bells continue. Water moves. People come and go. And eventually, whether after a short confinement or a longer one, every prisoner's relationship with these walls will change. But that is not today. Not yet. For now our man sits in the growing light. Someone nearby rises. There is the faint sound of clothing being adjusted. A vessel moves. The first ordinary preparations of morning begin. The air is still cold. The stone is still gray. The city beyond is slowly finding its voice again. Nothing calls us to hurry. We can leave quietly. Not through a dramatic opening of the gate. Not through a judgment. not by turning the prisoner into a lesson. We simply allow the room to remain where it is. The old stone around him, the dim light, the men waking, the passage beginning to stir. Outside, London unfolds into another day. A cart will soon pass. A bell will sound. Someone will carry food. Someone will offer charity. Someone will turn a key. Perhaps a visitor will come. Perhaps a name will be called. Perhaps nothing will change before noon. All of these possibilities can remain open. Our prisoner does not need us to know which one becomes true. He sits quietly while the brightness grows. For a little while, we have shared his narrow world. Not the imagined dungeon of endless spectacle. Not a place made only from cruelty, a real human place shaped by law, poverty, money, charity, darkness, warmth, hunger, architecture, and waiting. A place inside a living city, and now the city grows louder. The walls remain, the door remains. The day continues. Somewhere beyond Newgate, people walk freely beneath the pale morning sky. Inside, a man lifts his head toward the sound. Then he waits, and London, old and restless, carries on around him.